Today we talk about Mrs. Colonel Iqbal Singh, Darshan Kaur, wife of Colonel Iqbal. Colonel Iqbal was military attaché in Canberra, Australia. During this terrorist attack happened into their family and they were kidnapped and stabbed. But before I tell you about this story, we must understand how deadly this terrorist group was and what crime they were doing prior to this happened. Let's listen to this Australian news when they tried to bomb Morarji Desai, the Prime Minister of India, during his visit to Australia.
To murder Mr. Cameron. Alistair and Dunn were also convicted of the attempted murder of the arresting detective. The story behind the arrest and convictions began 5 months earlier, on a Monday morning in February. When council garbage workers emptied a full rubbish bin outside Sydney's Hilton Hotel, there was an immense explosion, and 2 men were blown to pieces. A police constable standing nearby had the back of his head crushed like an eggshell. He died 9 days later. The identity of the Hilton bomber is still unknown, but from the very first day, the Ananda Marga was blamed.
Well, in life one has to get used to many things like this.
The then Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Desai, was staying at the Hilton. He announced the Ananda Marga had tried to kill him. The press was quick to take up the cry, and Ananda Marga press officer Tim Anderson was given the job of defending the sect.
There were a number of serious incidents right here in Australia in the second half of 1977. In August, there was an assault on the Sydney offices of Air India in which animal blood was splattered over terrified employees. The following month, the military attaché at the Indian Embassy in Canberra, Colonel Iqbal Singh, was stabbed in the chest as he slept in bed next to his wife. He and his wife were kidnapped, though they managed to escape. This was front page news in the Sydney Morning Herald at the time. Just as the Air India incident I mentioned was also prominently reported in the newspapers. The police charged members of Ananda Marga with both of these attacks, and Colonel Singh's attacker was sent to jail for 3 years.
So, as we listen to this Australian journalist who explained us very nicely about this terrorist group, Ananda Marga, and the reasons why they were active, because their leader or the guru who was in jail in India, and this group kidnapped Colonel Iqbal and Mrs. Iqbal. And Mrs. Iqbal, I must say that here her parts come in action, because she, as a normal housewife, as how she played a big role in this kidnap and to get the family free, or this come out of the situation which they are both were going through. On this day, in mid of the night, she was kidnapped with her husband Colonel Iqbal at the gunpoint and with the knife, and they were driving in these lonely roads through the Australian jungle. That they were now the situation where they have to act. And here, as a normal housewife, she acted. She became, at this situation, a Durga, a Naari Shakti, which saved the situation, because Colonel Iqbal told her, now we have to do or die. And this was the time when she got in action. She, as this guy, huge guy, who was sitting on her, this Australian guy, big fellow, bully type, and she said she did her best. She, as a Punjabi chutney, she pulled his hairs, she was biting him, scratching him with her nails, and she said even she bit the finger, and he was so distracted, and she got disturbed. And at this point, Colonel Iqbal snatched the pistol from him and tried to bring the car to the hull, and they were able to bring some problems to this guy, and he saw that this situation getting out of control, and he tried to run away. Even through this jungling, this gunfire was also fired, and which went through, luckily, through the rooftop, and there was a huge sound effect also in all them. And that guy ran away, but later on caught by the police, Australian police, because of the DNS what Mrs. Colonel Iqbal was having on her fingers and her hairs were with him. And I request to our Indian government that the thing should be put straight and our Colonel Iqbal, Mrs. Iqbal should be honored with highest rewards for her bravery act, and how then after that this whole group Anand Magi was caught and dissolved in Australia, and we shall fully the Indian government should put the thing straight and give Mrs. Colonel Darshan Kaur all her rights for bravery and voluntary acts. Thank you. Jai Hind.